out and about for the sake of my own sanity. The saving grace about this whole thing is definitely getting an opportunity to explore blocks and areas of my neighborhood that I've never went down. That's kind of cool. Breaking a sweat, getting my steps up, all important. You know what else is important? Dinner. Head back and see what we have, because I'm not fixing to go at the grocery store. All right, let's see what we got here in the old freezer. I don't feel like eating any of this. Oh well. Sweet potato, cauliflower, some eggplant. All right. Right, let's see what we have here. Some peanut butter, boxed broth, chickpeas, chickpea flour, some quinoa. We can work with that. I've said it before and I'll say it again. The beauty about cooking is that you can take a trip anywhere in the world without having to leave your home. And that's what we're gonna do today. On this week's episode of As You Eat It, we're going to prepare an international feast without any overly gourmet ingredients, without having to go to a specialty market, and without having to update our passport. We're taking our taste buds on a trip to India today, as we'll be making a mixed vegetable chana masala over a peanut quinoa, and for an appetizer, a cottage cheese fritter, similar to a paneer pakora if you're familiar with Indian cuisine. And as a little dipper for that paneer pakora, we'll be making a cucumber cilantro raita, which we're gonna get to work on right now, because the longer it sets, the better it gets. Check it out. We're going to start by seeding and chopping 2 tablespoons of English cucumber. Taking out the seeds is an important step because it's going to remove a lot of excess moisture from the finished product. We're just going to chop it into sticks and then into small dice. Then we're going to gather it all up and use our rock and chop to get it finely chopped. Next up, we're going to smash and roughly chop 3 cloves of garlic using the same rock and chop technique that we did before. Really drive in there and get it nice and fine. Time to roughly chop some onion. I'm using about 1/4 of a red onion today, but if you have scallions, that'd be great. If you have chives, that'll work too. We're just gonna chop that down and then rock and chop it again. Followed by a nice handful of cilantro. That's gonna be about a tablespoon. Time to put it all together. The base of our raita is going to be 3 ounces of whole milk plain Greek yogurt, and then everything into the pool. Cucumber, onion, garlic, everything. Followed by a teaspoon of cumin, some pepper medley, a nice sprinkling of salt, and then mix it all to combine. Get everything down in there, even that garlic on the lip of the bowl. Taste for seasoning. We're good. Wrap it on up in plastic wrap, and then we're just gonna stash it in the fridge. While our raita is chilling in the fridge, we're going to get to work on our cottage cheese fritters. Now, I'm using chickpea flour today because I had it, but if you don't have it, you don't need to make a special run to the store. You can certainly use rice flour if you have it, or even all-purpose flour will do. Check it out. 1 cup of chickpea flour is going to go into our bowl here. You might also see it as garbanzo bean flour, so keep an eye out for that. Next up, 4 tablespoons of cottage cheese go into our mix, followed by our spices, all to taste. About a teaspoon of cayenne pepper, a teaspoon of dried mustard powder, a teaspoon of turmeric for color, a teaspoon of ground cumin for a little smoky flavor, a teaspoon of garlic powder, a teaspoon of onion powder, pepper medley to taste, and a heavy pinch of salt. And to bind everything together, we're going to crack in 1 egg. Now remember, crack your eggs on a flat surface, not on the side of the bowl. We're going to mix this together until we have everything combined. Everything's all nice and moist. Looks about right. Now let's get to pan fry. Heat a 9-inch skillet over medium heat for about 5 minutes, then add in 2 tablespoons of extra virgin olive oil. Using an ice cream scoop to make them a little bit more consistent, scoop in your fritters. You certainly can deep fry these as well, but this is a little less messy. We're going to fry our fritters for about 2 to 3 minutes per side, making sure we're not crowding the pan. A crowded pan creates steam, and we don't want that for our fritters. Just give it a nice little flip here, and then onto our baking tray before going in with our next batch. When they're all done, we're going to finish them off in a 350-degree oven for about 10 minutes. Let's plate up our fritters. A nice pile is going to go down on our platter here. Our raita goes down after that, and let's eat. It's time for our main course, which is a mixed vegetable chana masala. Now, chana masala is a traditional Indian chickpea stew served in a spiced tomatoey broth. In some regions, they add coconut milk to it, like I did today, and it gives it a nice creamy finish to it, but if you have an aversion to coconut or you just don't want to, you certainly can omit. Adding the coconut actually made it more like a West African vibe for me, which I really dig because I've been playing with those flavors lately, and it just kind of resonated. Now, when I say spiced versus spicy, they are two different things. Spiced is going to be a nice layering of flavor as opposed to spicy, which is just hot. Now, I can't really handle hot anymore, but if you want to make it spicier, you are more than welcome to. At the end of the day, it's up to your palate and how you want it. Check it out. Heat a 3-quart saute pan or brazier over medium heat for about 5 minutes, then add 2 tablespoons each of extra virgin olive oil and butter. We're going to use this fat to toast up our spice blend so it's nice and intense for us. Give it a little swirl around the pan, and let's deal with the spices. About a tablespoon of ground cinnamon is going to go into our oil and butter mixture, followed by a teaspoon each of ground mustard and ground cumin. Next up is a tablespoon of turmeric for color, followed by about 2 teaspoons of white pepper, 2 teaspoons of garlic powder, 2 teaspoons of cayenne pepper, 2 teaspoons of onion powder, a scant half teaspoon of ground clove. That can easily overpower, so really go light on that. About a teaspoon of ground ginger, some pepper medley to taste, and a teaspoon of toasted ground fennel seeds. We're just going to give this a stir and then let our spices warm, toast, and bloom in our oil and butter while we deal with our veg. First things first, we're going to peel and chop half a red onion to get that skin off to go with our planks and sticks and cubes. Next up, 2 scallions. I'm only using the whites today, but if the scallion greens are looking good, you certainly can use the whole thing. 3 cloves of garlic are going to get smashed and chopped next. Nice and fine. Followed by 1 red jalapeno, seeded and chopped. Use our spoon here to take out the ribs and the seeds, and finally chopping that. And we're going to use the same spoon to peel our ginger. Great little technique there. All in all, about a teaspoon of ginger. Our aromatics go into our oil, butter, and spice mixture. We're going to give it a nice big stir, along with a pinch of salt. We're going to let that go for about 3 to 5 minutes while we deal with the rest of our vegetables. We're going to trim and chop 1 small head of cauliflower. We're just going to work the tip of our knife around the stem and get that free. Cut it down and then roughly chop that. You certainly can use frozen as well if you can't find fresh. That's going to go into our aromatics. Stir to combine and let the flavors absorb into the cauliflower while we deal with our sweet potatoes. I'm using 2 medium sweet potatoes today. You certainly can use 1 large, or even a can of pumpkin would be great here. Trim off the ends, cut in half, and then to planks, and then into cubes. I'm going in skin and all on this. That's where the nutrients are. Into our pot. Nice big stir. And let's cut up an eggplant. Just trim off the ends here, as well as any spots that don't look that great. So, to planks, then sticks, then cubes, and into our pot they go. Nice big stir. We're going to let the water cook out of the eggplant a little bit while we deal with the liquids for our stew. Starting with chicken stock, I'm using 2 cups of unsalted chicken stock that I'm going to season to taste, but you certainly can use full sodium, reduced sodium, or even veggie stock, whatever you have on hand. Next up, a 13.5-ounce can of unsweetened coconut milk, followed by an 8-ounce can of tomato sauce goes in. We're going to give it a nice big stir to combine. We're going to bring this to a boil, reduce it to a simmer, cover, and cook until the vegetables are tender, about an hour. While our chana masala is working, let's get to work on that quinoa too. I'm using tricolored quinoa today, but whatever you have on hand is just fine. 1 cup of quinoa is going to go into our strainer here, and we're going to give it a little bit of a rinse. That's going to take off the rest of the exterior coating that can sometimes make it taste bitter. Give it a shake, and then into our pot it goes, along with our liquid. 1 cup of water and 1 cup of chicken stock. Fill it on up and down we go. Followed by some sesame oil. I'm using about a teaspoon today, and that's really gonna reinforce that peanut flavor. A good pinch of salt. Lid it on up, and then onto our stove it goes. Pop here on our simmer burner, and we're gonna bring it to a boil. You can't have a chana masala without chickpeas. Chana literally means chickpea. So we're going to drain off a 15-ounce can of chickpeas and give them a rinse and a shake. You certainly can use dried chickpeas and prepare them accordingly, but this is a lot easier. Just take our lid off here and pop in our chickpeas and give them a nice big stir. Top to bottom, bottom to top, get them nice and incorporated. And we're just gonna let this simmer uncovered until we are ready to eat. Our quinoa is boiling, so we're gonna turn that down to a simmer, and we're gonna let that simmer for about 12 to 15 minutes or until all the water and broth has been absorbed. For the peanut portion of our peanut quinoa, we're gonna go with 1 tablespoon of peanut butter. The only question is which one? Chunky, that works for me. A nice heaping tablespoon is gonna go into our bowl here. Let's check our quinoa, and it is ready to go. Into the bowl it goes. Scrape it down, give it a nice big stir, let that peanut butter melt and combine with the quinoa, and then we are almost ready to plate. Let's put our bowl down, take our chana masala off the heat and bring it on over. Nice portion of our quinoa here. I'm using about a 1/2 cup measure. Right in there, gives a nice form to the quinoa too. And then spoon our chana masala around the quinoa. Followed by a little cilantro for garnish. And some peanuts. Dinner's ready. Thank you for watching. I hope you enjoyed watching the video as much as I enjoyed making it for you. Like and subscribe to my YouTube channel. Follow me on Instagram and Facebook at TheChefZ. And hopefully when we're back on our feet, I can see you again at Bloomingdale's. If you would like to be an executive producer of As You Eat It, follow the Patreon link below. And as always, cook how you want to cook, eat how you want to eat, experiment how you want to experiment, eat as you eat it. Now if you excuse me, I'm going to continue my walk.